accept that recording so that you can stay with us. So hopefully you're seeing that now. And with that, we'll turn it over to Ahmed.
Awesome. Can you hear me, Cindy? Okay, great. And so I want to say that I am co-discussing this with my colleague and friend, Mackenzie Hogan, who is here with me. And I would be remiss if I did not say that she has been the one spearheading a lot of the work that we're doing here at Ohio State to keep our students connected. And so if there is an expert in the room, I think she'll get mad if I call her an expert. It's her, not me. So let's just get that all squared away. But also, like, we utilize Zoom, and so we're not Zoom employees, so we're just doing the best we can. If anything, the advantage we have is that maybe we started this a little bit earlier than everyone else, and so we're happy to share what we learned as we tried to navigate this this jungle of our reality becoming a virtual reality. And so, yeah, I think what Mackenzie and I talked about is just talking about how the process started for us, how decisions were made, and what it looks like today, and what we think is working, and maybe what we think could be better. And then we won't take up too much time after that. We would rather hear from the collective, because we have lots of really intelligent people with lots of experience in supporting students who can teach us, and we can learn from as well. And then also another thing that's important is that we made a few videos that will act as tutorials for setting up Zoom the way we did, if you think that that would be useful for you. And so we'll provide the link to be able to find those at the end of the conference call. And so I guess I'll start by bringing you into the conversation. Mackenzie, how do you think, what do you think about when we first understood that we were gonna have to be supporting students in a way that's non-traditional for us? What do you, I don't know if you recollect how the conversation went and how we got to this point a little bit, but maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah. First off, hi all. Glad to be here with you. I think we started having these conversations last week when Ohio State started to announce that virtual options are probably going to start to exist. And as you all know, I think the student population needs a lot of support. And I think one thing we knew that we wanted to do is make sure that we are as consistent as possible with our students from the get-go, so that they had the most seamless transition as they possibly could. And so right away we started looking at like what options were available, and Zoom seemed to be the one that was like most intuitive for everyone. Not only because it was like easy for us, but because all of our students will be doing classes via Zoom for the most part. So in a lot of ways I was encouraging them to jump on simply because it's extra practice for when they start classes again next week. So we started thinking through like what would it mean to have like a consistent space? Like what is it that we're providing students, and what is it that they might need? Originally we thought about how we were just going to do our meetings via this platform and leave it at that, and utilize a group or things of that nature. But as we played around a bit, we realized that we were able to do Zoom in a way that kind of could feel like a virtual drop-in lounge. So offering this as a space 24/7 for our students, which is what they have access to our actual lounge on campus, and then work it out from there. So we were able to set up, and I kind of videotaped myself setting it up so that you'll have access afterwards, but the ability to set up the lounge to be a 24-hour access, whether myself or Emmett are in there or not, and then utilize one link for all collegiate recovery activity for our students so that they know where they're going and move from that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think like when we started talking about, well, and it wasn't just us, the entire, our entire office at Ohio State, the Student Wellness Center, I encourage you, if you are a part of a larger umbrella at your university, to go look at how we are continuing to deliver all of our services virtually that we are able to deliver here at Ohio State, not only the collegiate recovery community, but financial coaching, wellness coaching, and lots of services, basics, K6. We are continuing to serve those populations. And on the webpage at the swc.osu.edu, there's a page or frequently asked questions about COVID-19 that talk about how we are delivering all of our services. And so the entire office began moving towards how are we going to continue serving students. And so the conversation between Mackenzie and I, who are dedicated staff for our students in recovery, was how do we, in this time where it's going to feel they're going to feel isolated, and they are going to be scared because their panic is settling over our entire country, not just our students and Ohio State students, but everyone is in fear because there's a, never seen before, at least in our time, situation occurring, which is stopping people from being able to access the things that they need in order to maintain their quality of life and their recovery. How do we provide services seamlessly to our students, or as seamlessly as possible? And so our goal was to replicate our services in every way possible. And so to be able to do anything we could do in person, we are now doing virtually. And so that was the idea. We're happy to answer questions if anyone has questions, but I also think that this is a great time for us to start talking about what some other schools are doing, and then also to come up with a plan on how to continue sharing resources. And I think Tim has an idea on how we can continue when we find something that's awesome. And for me, it's important that it's free, because we don't want services that are going to be asking students to pay money when these are unsure times for them, especially financially. So any free resource that we could share them with, the field, so that the students are all benefiting from them together. And I see we do have some questions. If you wanted, we can, I don't know how you guys want to move forward.
I think now is a good time to go ahead and start our conversation then. So one of the questions was to get the link that Ahmed referred to. And so Mackenzie put that in the group chat. So if you're interested in linking to the Student Wellness Center site, their FAQ page about COVID-19, you can do that directly from the group chat. We have grown quite a bit since we started. We're at 83 people, and that's a lot of people for one conversation. So I think if we have someone who has a question, if you want to just indicate you have a question in the group chat, we can then call on you so that you can ask your question to hopefully keep some sort of order. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, I know that the team at ARHE has been working on putting together some resources to make available. Tim, perhaps you could share a little bit about the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I know Ahmed mentioned the kind of spreadsheet that one of our interns actually put together. I can put the link in the chat too, but it's kind of grown a bit, and we're still trying to, scout everything that's out there. It started honestly just with some of the different virtual recovery meetings that were out there, 12-step ones, and then really branched down to all these different types of support meetings for, different different kind of populations. And then another tab got added for what CRCs were doing specifically, if they were open to other students or alumni and things like that. And then what we're adding now is social things. So for example, if folks are familiar with the Phoenix, it's kind of, sober physical activities, either in one of their gyms or, elsewhere. And they moved everything virtual, and they have a calendar online. So I'll put that link in there too. But that's one thing we're working on. And then if you're an ARHE member, you might have seen some of the different things on the listserv. We're hoping to continue more kind of chats, like this on different topics that are really, pertinent at this point. And then also offering, kind of like recovery support meetings, for folks who are, working in the field. So we have one tomorrow at, I believe, noon. And we're hoping to continue those for at least a little bit, but you can always reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to share that. But I'll get some of that in the chat box as well, so folks have info on that.
Great, thanks, Tim. So I think what we're going to do, this is something that's new for us, and so it's an experiment. So we're hoping that you can ride it out with us. We're going to go ahead and put people into small breakout groups to hopefully facilitate more conversation. We'll plan to stay in those breakout groups for about 20 minutes, and then we'll call everybody back, and maybe we can do a little report out on what kinds of things people discussed. Just know as we do that, there isn't, unfortunately, a way for us to ensure that there's someone to moderate each group. So we're going to ask that someone steps up and maybe gets the conversation started in your group. and then I'll pop around from group to group and check in and see how things are going. So again, this is new territory in so many ways for all of us, and this is new territory for us too. We'll see how this conversation goes. We ask that you hang out with us on the experiment, and we'll go from here. So I'm just going to need a minute to get you into breakout groups, and we'll plan to spend about 20 minutes there. Welcome back, everybody, to our large group. I hope that you had some great conversations in your breakout rooms. We're going to open the floor just for some of our groups to share about their conversations, things that they heard that they thought would be valuable, or questions that might be important to answer, or just unique things that happen in the conversation. So we'll go ahead and just open the floor if there's someone that would like to begin. We'll encourage everyone to make sure they're muted until it's your time to speak.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. What I wanted to ask and bring up, my name is Jonathan Salzberg. I oversee the College Success Program at Caron Treatment Centers. But I'm out of the Florida office, and we have a number of students that are at Florida Atlantic University. They're actually in our continuum of care, going to FAU as well as Palm Beach State College, both of which are, don't have fully comprehensive collegiate recovery programs at this time. And one of the things that were brought up, these virtual meetings that universities are offering, and I'm wondering if there's any way for students who are in recovery, going to school, but aren't at a school that has collegiate recovery, how do they get connected with these meetings? So it was something that I learned and had a question for, whether any campuses are going to have some outreach for other students that are in recovery, the one piece there. So thank you.
Great. And so in your group, were there, what was the answer to that? Just for folks that weren't part of that conversation, they might have that same question. What was that discussion like?
Well, what was the most interesting piece from what we were seeing was this virtual group where it's a drop-in, right? That there's, creating that designated space that's so effective, but having a drop-in center so that someone's on there all the time, or, at some point. So there really wasn't, it's kind of, there wasn't a real discussion. We didn't get to the point of how do we include those students that are in recovery that are being served but aren't in a collegiate recovery program per se. How do they get connected? So I guess that we didn't get there. I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Just on that, this is Monica. I'm from Virginia Tech. One of the things that our student leadership wanted to do was reach out to our fellow campuses. So one of our nearest campuses is Washington and Lee. They're only an hour away in Lexington. So they've taken the initiative to reach out to those guys and hopefully run a joint Zoom session and invite more people. And I've also asked the leadership, based on that idea, to reach out to Radford, which is really young in its infancy in developing a collegiate recovery program. So some of this is also from, I'm hopeful that the students will take ownership of this and kind of bring in colleagues and fellow students from local institutions.
Great, thanks, Monica. Any other groups interested in sharing more about your discussion?
One of the things we talked about in our group, I'll just say, is that there are lots of questions about how HIPAA compliant some of these websites are, and so we shared some resources about that. And so I think that that's an important conversation to continue moving forward, especially since some CRCs offer clinical services as well as your more wellness-based coaching type services that others offer.
Great, thanks, Ahmed.
So I want to throw in here one of the reasons, because one of the things that came up is how we're choosing platforms and things like that. And with ours, we moved everything to Microsoft Teams because all of our students have access. But because we also have dual authentication throughout the university, we are also HIPAA and FERPA compliant with using Microsoft Teams. And that was one of the things that we checked on real quick when we knew we were going to have to move everything online. And so that's definitely something to consider when choosing platforms and things like that.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Lindsay, I think that's a great point, and I'm sure that talking to your IT department at your university would be a helpful place to start as far as what they already have that would be would meet any standard that your university might have. For us, it's Zoom, so that's why we went with Zoom.
Hey everyone, I can share a little bit about what we talked about in our group. We talked about sharing resources on social media, since that's kind of the biggest way to reach students right now. But one of our questions, and we didn't really have an answer for this, was how much information is too much information, and how to get the information out there without overloading students. At Purdue, our recovery community is housed within our recreation and wellness. So on top of promoting all of our recovery resources, we're also promoting, like Group X, our financial wellness, wellness coaching, all of that. So we don't want to get lost in the shuffle, but we also want to make sure that our messages get out there. So if anybody has that magic solution of the perfect amount of stuff to put on social media, let us know.
My name is Erin Monroe. I'm from Binghamton University. I also wanted to kind of share, I don't know if other universities are feeling the same way or having the same things happening, but we were basically told by communications and marketing that we're not going to be sharing anything except COVID information until next week. So our social media stuff is kind of on a COVID lockdown until next week, but the only thing that they're willing to share other than COVID information is like mental health information. So yeah, I don't know if that's an issue other universities are, if people like us are going to have, but at Binghamton, we're our hands are a little tied right now.
Yeah, we have a similar moratorium on social media posts at Ohio State as well. Luckily, the posts that we included these services in our posts about the coronavirus. So.
Cindy, I wanted to see if it was possible to do a quick poll using the yes or no question. One of the conversations that came up in our group about professionals that are still working on campus, or so if essentially the question would be, are you working remotely yet at this point? So yes would be you are working remotely, or no, you are still expected to be working on campus. And some of that is, I think, supervisors are asked, trying to get that feedback if your state has an issue to a point where people are expected to work remotely. And so that might be good information for people to have. Are you comfortable with us doing that real quick? Is answering people yes if they're working remotely, or no if they're still working on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you hover at the bottom and click on the manage participants, if you don't yet have the participants toolbar on the right-hand side, that has your voting options. So there's a number of buttons, including a green yes and red no button. So yes would be working remotely, then, correct in that question? Yes is working remotely. Two is working still on campus. And so we do have some folks coming in. It is, I don't know if you guys can see the votes. Are you able to see them, or is it just me that can see them?
They should be, because they should be showing up by people's names as they answer.
Yes, okay. So it does look like there's a handful of folks that are still working on campus, but the majority of everyone that has voted is working remotely now.
Awesome, thanks. I thought that could be valuable to share as the situation continues to develop, that they can share that with supervisors and other staff on campus. The majority of people are working remotely, but there are still a handful that are working on campus as well. Thank you.
And a few people chiming in through the chat that they are will be working remotely soon. So not yet, but a plan to be remote soon. Great, thanks everyone. We have a few more minutes if there's anyone else that wants to report out on their group discussion, or if they have another question that didn't get answered or didn't have time to have discussion around, we feel free to pose that now too.
This is Anne, and our group talked about the possibility of like virtual hikes or some outdoor activities through some of the state parks and things like that. And I had shared the Phoenix page, and we were looking at that a little bit about some of their activities, because they seem to be offering things hourly when we went onto the site. And then in terms of what things we were offering for other supports, we just briefly spoke about Screen U, and then that one campus had been having, had a couple of AA meetings still happening on campus, but they had so little attendance, they were pushing folks to the free online virtual meetings and putting those out through social media and trying to figure out other ways to have some virtual office hours so that if students had questions, they could connect.
And would you be able to either share the Phoenix site link in the group chat or send us an email? There it is. Someone
Sure.
already got it for
Yep.
us, actually. You guys are quick,
Yep.
quick on the draw. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's great. I also want to like, I don't want to become soapboxy or anything, but I just want to, like encourage us all to push back on individuals who are going to try to monetize services and sell them to our students, and for us to keep fighting to make sure that any service offered through the CRC or like that is provided as an option from the CRC should be free, unless it's something like a counselor or a therapist or something like that, where logically there isn't any free service like that available, right? And so we don't want this to turn into an opportunity for our students to continue to be targeted, so as a place as consumers and people to sell things to and things like that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Anderson from University of Nebraska, and I've been working with Connie Boehm to create the campus recovery community here at Nebraska. So this is all kind of new to me, but in our group, we had a discussion about social isolation and how that's such an important thing to tackle, just to make sure that students in recovery are not feeling isolated.
I also shared this in my small group, but I would like to share it with the big group. I was on a Zoom call actually earlier today that talked about increasing connectivity with people during this time, especially with social isolation being a really big barrier for a lot of people. And one of the suggestions was to say physical distancing rather than social distancing, because we are still encouraged to be social with each other. We can still call, text, FaceTime our friends and family. And I think that that's something that we can really stress to anybody who is in recovery and is not doing well with the term social distancing, because they can still interact with people. So I think that just that shift in language is really important and is a way that we can help to promote not isolating ourselves, and especially in this time of having to be physically distant from each other.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I never even thought of that. That's amazing. One of the questions that I think we've been repeatedly getting is, will all of these things we're talking about be made to be compiled and put into a place that it can be shared? And I want to assure you that we are going to be working on that between ourselves and the work in ARHE, that we will be trying to just compile everything, right, and put it in a place where it's free, accessible, and somewhere where everyone can access it. And I think that it's important that we all take a part in continuing to make sure that list grows, and that any excellent resource that is available makes it onto that list. And so we will have to think through how to submit resources so that we can add it to that list. And we'll talk about that, but we will absolutely be happy to support that work and to make sure that the list is compiled so that all of the resources that students need throughout the country are readily available, and so that you guys are being supported in the work, that the increasingly difficult work that we are already, difficult as it is, but becoming increasingly more difficult as we are being asked to be physically I can't remember the term you just used, but whatever she said before me.
Physically distant.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So.
Yeah, Ahmed, that's a great point. And thank you to the team at ARHE and to Tim for all the work they've been doing to put together a document so far. That link has been shared in the group chat a couple of times, but we've also been working to put a place together. I'm going to share in just one moment our website link here, where we've been keeping some of our documents that we've mentioned, and we can continue to add to that. If there are resources that you're using that are perhaps PDF documents that are of value, we can add, and you're willing to share with others, we can add those as resources here. But ARHE has done a fantastic job so far of compiling some of those resources, and the things that you shared on the chat, we'll be sure to share with them so they can identify if it's appropriate to add to their list as well. So on the link that I'm sending you, it takes us to the Higher Education Center page, where we will post in a couple of days the recording for this session, as well as Ahmed referenced a document with a little bit of guidance around hosting virtual meetings. That document is currently there as well, and there's the link to the ARHE document there too. So you may want to make a note of this. We'll go ahead and leave this up, as well as we'll stick around in the room for a little bit. If people want to grab the links from the chat, they can do that as well. I think at this point, though, we're coming up on our hour. I'll just see if, does anyone have any last minute thoughts that they'd like to share? Okay, Tim, do you have anything you want to wrap us up with?
No, just a big thank you again to all the folks from the Higher Ed Center and Ohio State for helping put this together. And it's just great to see like Zoom in action and like using the breakout rooms and everything. I think there's a lot of different resources that I hope folks came up with and learned through the chat and through the breakout rooms. So just grateful for all the work that everyone's doing, and I hope this was helpful, and I was glad to be a part of it and help get the word out there. So yeah, thanks again to everyone at the Higher Ed Center and everyone else for joining.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for continuing to lead the way for recovery. And then also, like, I just thank you to everyone who came today and for continuing to support students on campus. You guys are the most important piece to this puzzle. If it wasn't for you all, our students would be lost and without connection to their universities. And so thank you all for continuing to work through these times to make sure the students are supported.
What great words to end on. Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Tim with ARHE. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. Like I said, I'm going to keep the room open for a little bit so people can grab links before they leave. But we appreciate everyone joining us, and we wish you the best. So take care of yourselves.